I'm Simon from Hope Woodturning, and I'm going to turn a square edge bowl as a little project. I'm going to use my bowl gouge, my negative rake scrapers, my pro sander and my sanding disc just to clean the edges up, so just to show you a few of the tools that I make. Just move these out of the way. So I'm going to start with the Crown Sweatback Cryo bowl gouge in a quick release handle. I like to start with the sweatback grind, and then quite often I would swap around and do my finishing cuts with the straight grind, and that's why I have this in the quick release, just quick and easy to swap around. We have this mounted up. Be very, very careful with your hands turning this sort of project, so always be wary of your hands and where they are in position to these spinning round, because it can be dangerous. So we'll start this up. Start always at a slow speed and build the speed up slowly to a safe speed. Quite often you have a little vibration at a low speed, somewhere about here, but you can go a little bit faster to actually punch through the vibration range. So that's around about 1,000 RPM, and we'll start there. So sweatback gouge, we're going to tip that over and just use the bottom wing just to start to true up. As we start to get to the wings, you can't put as much pressure in because it will start to bounce. So you have to adjust your pressure that you're using. So here, just ease off a little bit. If you apply the same amount of pressure here to here, this would cut very quickly. I also slow down the speed. When I come to those corners. So I'm just getting some shape in the bottom of this bowl. Maybe do a little foot like this. We're starting to reach across now, so I'm just going to move the rest in. Sometimes if I'm turning just round objects, I might move the rest while it's spinning. With any natural edge or square edge work, I always stop the lathe first for safety. Okay, let's have a look at that shape. Yeah, it's starting to come up. I maybe just go up a little bit more, just to get a bit more of a curve on there. I'm still using the sweatback grind, which is a rough cut. It doesn't leave a good finish, but it takes material away very quickly. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that now. We'll take the insides out, maybe take a little bit off the top there and thin it down, but I'm reasonably happy with that. What we'll do now is we'll just get this bit set, as in tidied up, and the recess for the chuck, before we actually do our finishing cuts, and maybe using the negative rakes to get a nice improved finish on this. We can't sand at this, it's too torn, so we need to do some improving cuts. But to begin with, we'll just do the recess in there. Just going to use the verniers to mark that out. maybe just use the detail tool. To allow me to turn this away afterwards, I always leave that little bit in the bottom there. So I'm just going to put a little dimple to help me reverse this around to finish that off. And just using the Hope detail tool just to get that recess correct. Now we've taken some of the weight away, we should be able to increase some of the speed. Just move that rest in. What I'm going to do is just shear cut across the bottom here just to get that bit nice and tidy. And then we're going to swap this over to our straight grinds to do some finishing cuts. That's good. Now what we can't do is actually get the bowl gouge very tight into that corner. Okay, so what I tend to do is use the detail tool. This is just the way that I prefer to do things. There's other ways of doing it, but I like to use the detail tool. You can get that right into the corner, and you can shear scrape the bit that you can't actually get the bowl gouge on. Yeah, and if we have a look at that, you can see we've got a nice clean cut. It leaves quite a good finish when you have it up at 45 and actually shear cut, but you can see the difference, so nice and clean against that torn grain on there. So with the bowl gouge, I have the flute slightly up, and I like to rub on this bevel here. Nice and gently out to the end, and you should see an improvement to the cut of that. All that torn grain has gone, but it tends to leave these bevel rubs behind, and that's where I might use the negative rake to improve that again. You never get as clean a cut as with a bowl gouge, but it does take all these bumps out and ripples when you do use the negative rake, so that's the purpose of those and why I would use them. So I'm just going to do one more cut just with the bowl gouge. And out to the end. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that shape. That was an improved cut. You could possibly sand that, but the trouble is with these square edge or natural edge sort of bowls is that you tend to roll the edges, so the more you can do with the tooling to keep that nice and crisp, the better. So we're just going to have a little go with the negative rakes just to tidy that up. I'm going to use the square one, slightly convexed, and what this also allows me to do is actually get into that corner in one operation. So make sure we're cutting on the centre height. Good to go. So we get right into that corner, and we can just run that all the way to the end, nice and gently. Quite likes natural edge work and unbalanced work. Works quite well for that purpose. Yeah, and with just a couple of sweeps, nice and easy. You don't have to hold on like an ordinary scraper, but a much improved surface finish even from the bowl gouge. It just takes all those bevel rubs away. Very easy tool to use and requires now less sanding. So we'll go on to that part and just show you the Pro Sander and how you might use that with natural edge or unbalanced work. So I've got the 3" or the 72mm arbor. I make them slightly undersized, of course, so when we use the 75mm discs, there's a slight overlap, and it just means you don't wear the edge of the, or you don't mark or wear away the edge of the neoprene pad. So we'll get that sanded up. Never sort of tip in like this, you have to sort of tip and use this bottom edge. This top edge mustn't dig in, so we tip like this. Just let it run, just let it run over to the edge. Sands very, very efficiently. You can even get it into this tight corner. We'll get that bit sanded up, and that face there as well. So this is 180 grit. I like to stop after using the first grit to make sure all the heavy marks have gone. Yeah, it's pretty good. And then we can just keep going through all the grits to the end. So walnut's one of those timbers, if there's any marks in there, that would just show it up immediately. Just walnut's one of them, so maybe it's a good way to show how the tools and the sander works, taking all the marks out. A little bit on the inside there, on that face. Now I'm going to use 320. .400. And finally 600. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, nice clean finish all the way up to the edge. We haven't rolled those over too much. Yeah, very happy with that. So we'll get this turned around. Into a recess. Again, I like to go from one chuck point to the other. I think it's safer. Make sure that's running true. Now, whenever I turn an unbalanced piece round, I always turn the speed down and then build the speed up to the correct speed again, because you never know if it's unbalanced or the way that you turn it around. If you just went go, it could vibrate too much. So speed down and build it up slowly to find the right speed, which is so easy to do, of course, with the variable speed of these KS lathes. So got a good speed going there. Make sure everything's fully locked off. And I'm just going to swap back to the fingernail grind. Now the rest should be slightly below centre. Okay, the rest is a bit too high at the moment. Should always point up at this angle to the centre line. That's how I think bowl gouges should work. And you can see the rest is a bit too high there. Let me just drop that down. Yeah, that's about correct, pointing up to the centre. Just a little trick, when you're actually turning a bowl like this, it's always best to leave the bevel rubbing on the way out, because then it's the right angle to go back in again. Quite often if you come away, it's very hard to find this correct angle here. So I'd always, even if I come away, I'd rub the bevel here, come out, and that's the right angle to go back in. Okay, I just want to show you what's happening. So we've obviously just about come to the end there, and you can hear that we're actually skipping, hitting by the sound. So we'll just move the rest in just a tiny bit. I'm not too worried about this centre bit at the moment. Okay, we need to get this first proportion correct before we actually move on and take the middle out. Okay, you need support of these wings. If you make it ultra thin, then you have to do like an inch, finish that part, go down, do another inch, and so on. Okay, depending if how thick you actually make those. Again, be very mindful of the bevel is at the correct angle when you're making your cut, and always watch the ghosting. You can see the ghosting as it spins round, so you can see the other edge, and always follow that line as you're cutting. Okay, so bevel rubbing, come out. Bevel rubbing. Bevel rubbing. So we're down now to round about 6mm, something like that. We can see that we've got a nice even edge. That's what I was looking for. And you can see that as you're making the cut by the ghosting on the other side. I could make it thinner. If I went thinner, then I'd have to go down in steps. So I think that proportionally, that looks pretty good. Maybe just a tad thinner. So we'll look at that. Bevel rubbing. Out to the edge. And just take that in. Yep, nice and even. So I'm going to take a little bit more meat out the centre here, and I want to stop about here. I want to get this bit all sanded up in one operation. So we'll take just a little bit more out on there. I'm just going to use the round negative rake now. Make sure that we're cutting on the centre line. We'll just lift the rest up. A bit higher. It's not a bad finish. There's a bit of a mark there. Excuse me a sec while I just have a clear my throat. So again, very, very safe to use these negative rakes. You can just float over the surface. Very easy. I'm not hanging on. I'm just letting the weight of the tool do the work. Yeah, I'm very happy now. You can see instantly A bit of vibration on that one where I haven't quite gone deep enough, but on here, yeah, that's all good. Yeah, just need to do one more. Yeah, I think I've just gone, you know, we're having flex now on those wings, which is just showing on the timber. But here, very good. Just a little bit of flex on that one, but we can sand that out. So what I'd like to do is just sand those parts there before we move on to the rest. Might just get it with this one, might have to just go down to the next size down. Stop and have a look at that. Yeah, perfect. Maybe just a little bit on there, maybe. Yeah, quite happy with that. So I'm just going to go through the grits now. Let's move the discs over here. So just going through the grits, that was 180, this is 240. $320. $400. And $600. Yeah, make sure they're stuck down properly. Okay, we will have to come back and do a little bit of sanding, obviously to blend that in, but I wanted to get all these corners done before I take the middle out, and there might be movement in the wood. But you can see, if we can have a zoom in on that, that's absolutely perfect. Perfect finish, down to 600. As I say, walnut, if there was any marks on there, that would show up, so very happy with that. So let's get the centre done. The rest is a little bit high because that's set for the negative rake tools. That's it. Okay, we're going to move the rest in. Now you might be wondering why I'm pushing downhill like that to take the centre core out. It's just my method of turning. What I like to do is push that way because it's pushing the bowl actually onto the chuck, if you like. If you keep making cuts this way, as you come to the centre, you're actually trying to push the whole thing off of the chuck. So I find it safer pushing down this way to get the bulk out of the centre. Then I'll go the traditional way of making my cuts towards the centre. We'll just get that moved in a bit closer. Again, always be wary of your hand here. If in doubt, put some tape on here just as a visual so you can see where to stop, but be very careful with these edges here in your hand. Now I'm just going to get my calipers and just make sure we're happy with that. These are my bowl calipers. So you can see we're about 5mm there, maybe 7, going to maybe 12. So you can see we've got some more to come out of the centre. We'll just do a few more cuts before we go over to the finishing cuts. Again, we'll just check that. Our calipers. Yeah, it's about 2mm difference. So I'm reasonably happy with that. I could take just a little bit more out the centre, which I have to because the timber's just broken just a little bit there. But this is now why I do the finishing cut. So we'll swap that over and we use our straight grind to do our finishing cuts. So we'll get the bevel just rubbing. Nice and gently to the centre. Just about taking that out. You can see we get the bevel rubs. That would actually sand out, but again, this is why I would perhaps use the negative rake tool. And again, you don't have to grip this tool, so the weight of the tool will do the work. It literally just sits on the rest. And we'll just take that down to the centre. Nice and easy, nice and gentle. Yeah, we've taken all those bevel rubs away, so all we have to do now is just sand and blend in with what we had before. So again, this is the tricky bit of actually sanding in the centre. Again, if you just have it in the centre, it doesn't actually do anything. So you have it to the side and you just sweep across the bottom. So keep it moving, and it will actually spin and sand that centre. Again, I'm just going to stop and check we've got all the marks out. Yeah, it's looking beautiful. Yeah, so we can just go through the grits. Just blending in. So this is now 240 grit. .320. .400. And finally 600 grit. Now we're just blending in where we were before, going up to the edge. And there we have a perfect finish. Now that we've turned our bowl, I'll just like to tidy up the edges. And for that I'm going to use the aluminium sanding disc. So this can come off. This is the Hope Woodturning aluminium disc. I like using the aluminium disc because it's very strong and it also absorbs the heat. Of course you can make a wooden one, there's no problem with that, but the aluminium one absorbs the heat and is stronger. So it goes into a standard set of jaws. I've got a coarse grit on here. Excuse me, I do tend to turn the speed down, maybe to sort of 1,000, 1,500 RPM. We don't want that going too fast. So we can sand coming across the face, like so. This is actually out of true slightly. So we're just going to square that up, run it across. Like so. Yeah, I think we're just about there. Yep, nice and clean. Nice and clean. A little bit more. And a little bit more. So this one I'm just using the coarse grit to begin with, just to sand that, and then I'd use the fine grit just to tidy up. Yeah. Nice and tidy. One more. And there we have our square edge platter. If you want to see the video on how to actually finish this bowl with a new product from Butte, check out the video.